Welcome back to the devastating conclusion of Seeds of Deception. If you missed part 1, the link is in the description. Go watch it first, then come back. Here's what happened. Elizabeth, consumed by jealousy, stole her stepson Tobi's scholarship credentials and gave them to her biological son, Emeka. Tobi's perfect 4.7 GPA, his achievements, his dreams, all transferred to Emeka's name in one night of deception. Emeka flew to Canada with stolen credentials. Tobi stayed in Lagos, confused and heartbroken. And Elizabeth lived with her terrible secret. But here's the truth. Elizabeth didn't understand. You can steal credentials, but you cannot fake competence. And when Emeka stands in a Canadian operating room holding a scalpel over a human heart, his inadequacy won't just mean failure, it will mean death. Before we continue, subscribe if you haven't already. Hit that notification bell and comment below, where are you watching from? What do you think will happen next? The Yoruba elders say, Tito ki isofo, amo o lepe ki otode. Truth never dies, but it may take time to arrive. The time for truth has come. This is part 2, Harvest of Truth. The University of Toronto's medical program hit Emeka like a Lagos trailer on 3rd Mainland Bridge. From his first day in the lecture halls of the Faculty of Medicine, it became clear that the academic standards that had made him above average in Nigeria were woefully inadequate for this accelerated program. Professor Davidson, a stern man with grey hair and expectations as sharp as Yoruba tribal marks, addressed the scholarship recipients during orientation. You are here because your academic records suggest exceptional brilliance. This program will push you beyond your limits. Only those who truly deserve to be here will survive. Emeka's roommate, Zhang Wei from China, scored 98% on their first anatomy exam. Sarah from Germany achieved 96%. When Emeka's results came back, 67%, his world began to shake like Lagos ground during an earthquake. Emeka, your interview suggested deep understanding of medical concepts, Professor Davidson said during a private meeting, but your performance doesn't match your credentials. Are you experiencing adjustment difficulties? Emeka's nights became marathons of desperate studying. While other students slept, he pored over textbooks, trying to bridge the gap between his stolen credentials and his actual abilities. But brilliance cannot be faked forever, like fake gold eventually reveals its brass heart. His grades continued to slide. Physiology, 62%, biochemistry, 59%, medical ethics, 71%. He was passing but barely, riding the razor's edge of academic survival. Meanwhile, back in Lagos, Tobi was rebuilding his shattered dreams with the patience of a master craftsman. The scholarship rejection had hurt, like a machete to the soul, but his father's wisdom rang in his ears. When one door closes, knock down the wall and build your own door. Tobi, I know say the scholarship thing pain you, David said one evening as they sat on their Lekki terrace, watching the sunset paint Lagos lagoon gold. But sometimes, what we think na our greatest loss dey be our greatest blessing in disguise. Tobi threw himself into his Unilag medical studies with renewed determination. His professors, already impressed by his exceptional abilities, began to take special notice of this young man who seemed to study with the intensity of someone with something to prove. Dr. Adebimpe, the head of surgery department, called him aside after a particularly brilliant presentation on cardiac procedures. Tobi, your understanding of surgical concepts is remarkable for a second-year student. Have you considered research opportunities? Yes, sir. I dey interested in pediatric cardiology. Many Nigerian children dey die from heart problems wey fit be corrected with proper surgery. Dr. Adebimpe smiled. I have connections with cardiac surgeons at Lagos University Teaching Hospital. Let me introduce you to Dr. Okafor. He might have opportunities for exceptional students like yourself. While Emeka struggled in Toronto's winter, counting down days until he could return home, Tobi was planting seeds that would grow into mighty trees. He began working part-time at LUTH, assisting in research, learning practical skills that textbooks couldn't teach. His evenings were spent differently now. Instead of just studying theory, he visited his uncle Kunle, who ran a small medical supplies business in Ikeja. "Uncle Kunle, teach me about medical equipment importation," Tobi requested. "I want to understand the business side of healthcare." Kunle, impressed by his nephew's initiative, began mentoring him. "Tobi, this country need young doctors who understand both medical practice and business. Most of our medical equipment they come from abroad. If you fit bridge that gap." Slowly, an idea began to form in Tobi's mind. While studying medicine, he started learning about healthcare entrepreneurship. He began to envision not just becoming a doctor, but creating a medical facility that would serve Nigerian families who couldn't afford expensive private hospitals. 2 years into Emeka's Canadian program, the contrast between the brothers' paths became stark as the difference between Lekki and Mushin. Emeka's video calls home were filled with stories that didn't quite ring true. "Everything day go well," he would tell the family, forcing brightness into his voice. "The program challenging, but I day manage 'em." What he didn't tell them were the sleepless nights, the constant anxiety, the growing realization that he was drowning in waters too deep for his stolen credentials. His grades had improved slightly through desperate effort, now averaging around 70%, but he remained at the bottom of his scholarship class. Meanwhile, Tobi's progress was like a rocket ship pointed at the stars. He had completed his research project on cost-effective pediatric cardiac surgery in resource-limited settings and presented it at the Nigerian Medical Students Association conference. His presentation received a standing ovation. Dr. Okafor pulled him aside afterward. "Tobi, this research is exceptional. Have you considered submitting it to international medical journals?" "I day think about it, sir, but I'm more interested in practical implementation. I want start planning a medical facility where go specialize in affordable pediatric surgery." As the months passed, Elizabeth found herself caught in a web of her own weaving. Emeka's letters and calls revealed struggles he was trying to hide, while Tobi's obvious success at home made her guilt grow like mold in Lagos humidity. "Mama, Tobi don win another academic award," little Amara announced one evening, showing her mother the certificate their brother had brought home. Elizabeth stared at the certificate. "Outstanding student in clinical research," and felt her stomach churn. This boy, the one she had robbed, continued to excel despite her sabotage. Meanwhile, her own son was struggling with achievements that weren't rightfully his. "Tobi really brilliant, Shah," David mused over dinner. "Sometimes I day wonder how him no get that scholarship. His capabilities obvious to everybody." Elizabeth nearly choked on her rice. "God works in mysterious ways," she managed to say. By his 4th year at Unilag, Tobi had saved enough money from his part-time research work and his uncle's business mentorship to start making his vision reality. He had identified a plot of land in Ikeja, spoken with medical equipment suppliers, and begun drafting business plans for what he would call Hope Children's Medical Center. "I want to create a place where every Nigerian child fit get quality medical care, regardless of their family's financial status," he explained to potential investors. "We go operate on a mixed model. Those way fit afford full payment go subsidized treatment for those way no fit pay." His presentation to a group of Lagos businessmen was masterful. Charts showing the gap in pediatric cardiac care, projections for sustainability, partnerships with international medical organizations. Tobi had thought of everything. Mr. Ademola, a successful businessman who had been moved by Tobi's presentation, approached him afterward. "Young man, your vision impressive. How much you need to start?" As Emeka entered his final year in Toronto, the pressure intensified like a Lagos generator about to explode. His clinical rotations were disasters waiting to happen. During his surgical observation, his hands shook like leaves in harmattan wind. His theoretical knowledge, built on foundations of lies, crumbled when faced with real patients and real consequences. Dr. Patterson, his clinical supervisor, noted in his evaluation, "Student shows theoretical understanding, but lacks the intuitive grasp expected from someone with his academic background. Recommend additional supervised practice before independent procedures." Meanwhile, Tobi was already being courted by top Nigerian hospitals. His reputation had spread through Lagos medical circles like the aroma of fresh bread, but his heart remained set on his vision, a medical center that would serve the people who needed it most. One evening, as he stood on the construction site of what would become Hope Children's Medical Center, Tobi felt a deep satisfaction that no stolen scholarship could have provided. He was building something real, something honest, something that would outlast him. Neither brother knew that their paths were about to collide in ways that would expose every lie, reveal every truth, and force a family to confront the poisonous seeds that had been planted in their garden of love. Emeka would graduate from his program in 6 months, carrying credentials that would open doors to prestigious positions. But credentials built on lies are houses built on sand, and when the tide of truth comes in, even the mightiest structures crumble. Tobi's honest journey was bearing fruit that would nourish generations. But he had no idea that his stepmother's deception was about to catch up with all of them in ways that would test the very foundations of forgiveness and family. The reckoning was coming, swift and merciless as Lagos traffic justice. Our ancestors say, "Eke lagbara ju otito lo, shugbon otito ni ipari re." Lies may be stronger than truth temporarily, but truth will always have the final word. Dr. Emeka Adebayo was about to learn this ancient wisdom in the most devastating way possible. The graduation ceremony at University of Toronto was a magnificent affair. Against the backdrop of the historic Convocation Hall, Emeka Adebayo walked across the stage in his cap and gown, receiving his Doctor of Medicine degree with honors that belonged to another. The scholarship program director, Dr. Margaret Chen, shook his hand warmly. "Dr. Adebayo, your journey here wasn't easy, but you've proven that determination can overcome initial challenges. Toronto General Hospital is lucky to have you." Emeka smiled, but behind his eyes lay the exhaustion of 4 years spent swimming against currents too strong for his stolen credentials. He had passed, yes, but barely, carrying grades that reflected struggle rather than the brilliance his documents claimed. The job offer from Toronto General Hospital came with everything the scholarship had promised. A starting salary of 180,000 Canadian dollars, comprehensive benefits, housing allowance, and the prestigious title of resident surgeon in their cardiac unit. When Emeka's flight touched down at Lagos Airport, he was greeted like a conquering hero. Elizabeth had organized a celebration that rivaled a Lagos society wedding. Aso Ebi uniforms, live band, enough jollof rice to feed half of Victoria Island. "My son! My doctor's son!" Elizabeth proclaimed to everyone within earshot, her guilt temporarily drowned in maternal pride. "He don graduate from Canada. He go be surgeon." David embraced his stepson with tears in his eyes. "Emeka, you don make the Adebayo name proud. From Lagos to Toronto, you carry our flag high." Tobi, now in his final year at Unilag and deep in preparations for his own medical center, hugged his stepbrother warmly. "Brother, I dey proud of you. You show say Nigerian youth fit compete anywhere." The celebration lasted 3 days. Politicians, business leaders, and society people came to honor the young man who had made it in the international arena. Emeka gave speeches about his Canadian experience, carefully omitting the nights of terror, the constant anxiety, the growing realization that he was living someone else's dream. 6 weeks later, Emeka returned to Toronto to begin his residency at Toronto General Hospital. The cardiac surgery unit was a temple of precision, where every decision carried the weight of human life, and every mistake could mean the difference between a beating heart and eternal silence. Dr. Patricia Williams, the chief of cardiac surgery, was a woman whose reputation for excellence was matched only by her intolerance for incompetence. During Emeka's orientation, her words carried prophetic weight. In this unit, we don't deal with textbook theories. We hold human hearts in our hands. Every patient who enters our operating room trusts us with their most precious possession, their life. That trust is sacred, and we honor it with skill, precision, and unwavering competence. Emeka's first month was supervised procedures, assisting senior surgeons, observing techniques, learning the intricate dance of cardiac surgery. His hands, already unsteady from years of academic anxiety, trembled like Lagos power supply during peak demand. Mrs. Linda Chen, a 54-year-old mathematics teacher and grandmother of 3, was Emeka's first independent procedure. She needed a routine mitral valve repair, a surgery that in competent hands had a success rate of over 95%. Dr. Adebayo, Dr. Williams said, the morning of the surgery, "Mrs. Chen's case is straightforward. Your academic record suggests you're more than capable. Consider this your stepping stone into independent practice." As Emeka scrubbed in, his reflection in the surgical suite mirror showed a man haunted by the ghosts of stolen achievements. His hands shook as he put on his gloves, and for a moment he considered confessing everything: the lies, the theft, the fraud that had brought him to this moment. But pride and fear silenced his conscience, like Lagos traffic silencing a small voice in the crowd. The surgery began at 9 a.m. on a Tuesday morning that would change everything. Mrs. Chen lay on the table, her life in the hands of a man whose credentials were built on deception and whose skills were inadequate for the task ahead. What should have been a 2-hour procedure stretched to 4 hours of increasing complications. Emeka's inexperienced hands, guided by theoretical knowledge rather than practical mastery, made critical errors: a misplaced suture, a miscalculated incision, a moment of hesitation that lasted too long. At 1:47 p.m., the monitors flatlined. Mrs. Linda Chen, beloved teacher and grandmother, died on Emeka's operating table, her heart stopped by the very hands that were supposed to heal her. The hospital's emergency protocols kicked in like a well-oiled Lagos BRT system. Dr. Williams burst into the operating room, her face a mask of professional concern and growing alarm. "What happened here?" she demanded, looking at the scene of medical catastrophe. Emeka's voice trembled like a child caught stealing meat from the soup pot. "There were complications. The valve was more damaged than the scan showed. I tried to repair it, but..." Dr. Williams examined the surgical site with the expertise of someone who had performed thousands of similar procedures. What she saw made her blood run cold. Surgical errors that suggested not just inexperience, but fundamental incompetence. "Dr. Adebayo, this level of technical error is inconsistent with someone of your supposed academic background. We need to review this case immediately." Mrs. Chen's family, devastated by their loss, demanded answers. Her son, Michael Chen, a lawyer with connections in Toronto's medical community, initiated both a medical malpractice lawsuit and a formal investigation into the circumstances surrounding his mother's death.
My mother went in for routine surgery, he told the media, his grief giving way to righteous anger. She trusted this hospital, trusted this doctor. Now she's gone, and we want to know why. The hospital's medical review board, led by Dr. Jonathan Hayes, began a thorough investigation. They examined Emeka's surgical technique, reviewed the procedure step by step, and interviewed every person present in that operating room. Their findings were damning. The surgery showed clear signs of incompetence that were inconsistent with Emeka's academic credentials. The techniques used were those of someone with minimal practical experience, not the scholarship recipient with exceptional grades that his file claimed. As if the medical gods were determined to expose every lie, Emeka's subsequent cases began to unravel like cheap fabric in Lagos rain. His second patient, Mr. David Thompson, a 62-year-old engineer, died from complications during what should have been routine bypass surgery. The third case, Mrs. Sarah Williams, no relation to Dr. Williams, suffered massive internal bleeding during a valve replacement procedure. Though she survived, she was left permanently disabled, her quality of life destroyed by Emeka's surgical incompetence. Each death, each complication, each failed procedure sent shockwaves through Toronto General Hospital. The cardiac unit, known for its excellence, was suddenly facing a crisis of confidence that threatened its reputation and its patients' lives. The families of Emeka's victims began to organize like Lagos market women facing government harassment. Led by Michael Chen, they filed a massive class action lawsuit against Toronto General Hospital, demanding millions in damages and calling for a complete investigation into how such an incompetent doctor had been allowed to practice. "This isn't just about money," Michael Chen told reporters outside the courthouse. "This is about justice for our loved ones and ensuring that no other family has to suffer what we've suffered." The lawsuit demanded $15 million in damages and called for criminal charges against both Emeka and the hospital administration for negligent homicide. Media attention intensified like Lagos sun at noon, with news outlets across Canada picking up the story of the incompetent foreign doctor who had somehow slipped through the system. Dr. Williams, facing the biggest crisis of her career, made the decision that would unravel everything. She ordered a complete audit of Emeka's credentials, employment history, and academic background. "Something doesn't add up," she told the hospital's legal team. "The level of incompetence we're seeing is not just about inexperience. It suggests fundamental gaps in knowledge that shouldn't exist in someone with his academic record." The audit would trace back through Emeka's Canadian education, his scholarship application, his academic transcripts, and ultimately to a small medical college in Lagos, Nigeria, where the truth waited like a time bomb ready to explode. Back in Lagos, Elizabeth watched the Canadian news coverage through online streams, her heart pounding like talking drums during a funeral ceremony. The reports spoke of surgical disasters, patient deaths, and an ongoing investigation into a Nigerian doctor's competence. She recognized her son in the grainy news footage, saw his face as he walked into the courthouse surrounded by lawyers and protesters. But more terrifying than his visible distress was the mention of a comprehensive background investigation that threatened to expose. Late at night, as David slept peacefully beside her, Elizabeth stared at her phone, watching news reports that spoke of criminal charges and deportation proceedings. The seeds of deception she had planted were growing into a forest of destruction that threatened to consume not just Emeka, but their entire family. In Toronto, investigators were already making calls to the University of Lagos, requesting original transcripts and academic records. In Lagos, Tobi was putting finishing touches on Hope Children's Medical Center, unaware that his stolen credentials were about to be exposed in the most public and devastating way possible. And in the Adebayo household in Lekki, Elizabeth Okoye Adebayo finally understood the true meaning of the Yoruba proverb. The truth was coming for them all, and when it arrived, it would spare no one. The reckoning was no longer approaching. It had arrived, carrying with it the weight of 3 dead patients, millions in damages, and a family's reputation about to be destroyed by lies that had seemed so small when they were planted in the darkness of a Lagos night 5 years ago. The elders say, Otito ki I shofo, amo o le pe ki o to de. Truth never dies, but it may take time to arrive. After 5 years of living in the shadow of lies, the Adebayo family was about to step into the harsh light of absolute truth. Dr. Patricia Hayes from the College of Physicians and Surgeons of Ontario arrived at Murtala Muhammad Airport on a humid Lagos morning, carrying documents that would change everything. Her mission was simple but devastating. Trace the academic history of Dr. Emeka Adebayo and verify the credentials that had led to 3 deaths in Toronto. At the University of Lagos, Dr. Adebimpe, the head of surgery department, received the Canadian officials in his office overlooking the busy campus. The air conditioning hummed like a generator under pressure as they spread Emeka's documents across his mahogany desk. Dr. Adebimpe, we need to verify these transcripts, Dr. Hayes said, her voice carrying the weight of 3 families seeking justice. The surgical competence we observed doesn't match these exceptional grades. Dr. Adebimpe studied the documents with the careful attention of a man who had spent decades in Nigerian academia. Something immediately struck him as wrong. "This is very strange," he murmured, adjusting his glasses. According to these transcripts, Emeka Adebayo achieved a perfect 4.7 GPA and won several academic awards. But I remember Emeka as a good student, not exceptional. These grades, they look more like... His voice trailed off as realization struck him like Lagos lightning. He reached for another file from his cabinet. These grades match another student's records almost exactly. Tobi Adebayo, David's son from his first marriage. But these documents have Emeka's name on them. Dr. Hayes leaned forward, her investigator's instincts sharpening. "Are you saying these transcripts may have been altered?" Dr. Adebimpe nodded gravely. "I believe someone has systematically replaced Tobi's achievements with Emeka's name. This is academic fraud on a massive scale." The Canadian investigation team immediately requested the original records for both students. What they